Let's start this press conference with Mr. Joji Morishita, who is the Commissioner to the International Whaling Commission for Japan. And as this is a highly emotional topic, especially in Western countries, I'm happy to see you here, although Mr. Morishita had a similar press conference 2 or 3 days ago at the Foreign Press Center. So please show by your questions that this is a real Foreign Correspondents Club, where we find out the news. And I won't talk too much because Mr. Morishita gives us a short explanation about the Japanese position, and then it's free for questions of the press.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And thank you very much for coming today, even though it's just 2 days after another briefing I had. I try to say something different if possible. And you might be lucky hearing something different from 2 days ago. Let's see. And as just, well, first of all, I hope you're enjoying this slideshow. And that's from, this is my own computer, and I try to hide the desktop, and that's why you are seeing some of the pictures I took in the past. So you can see how many countries I traveled in the past in some places. Well, on 18th of November, so about 2 weeks ago, my government has submitted the draft research plan under the IWC in Antarctic Ocean. And as you know very well, this was triggered by International Court of Justice decision or judgment on the 31st of March of this year. Essentially, the court decision said Japan's so-called scientific whaling, whatever you call, activities in Antarctic is outside the scope of International Convention of Regulation of Whaling, and therefore Japan should revoke the permit or license for that research activities. And as a result, the Japanese government canceled the research activities for this year, usually starting from around this time in the austral summer. And we will be only engaged in a sighting survey, non-lethal studies for the coming austral summer. There are perceptions. Well, there are many perceptions about whaling issue in that sense. For this particular issue, there are perceptions or coverage right after the ICJ, International Court of Justice judgment, that the ICJ has now prohibited all scientific whaling. Or sometimes the headlines of media read that whaling was denied, or Japan totally lost, or something like that. So before I explain some of the main features of our new research plan, maybe it is useful to explain the actual result of ICJ judgment. I spent some time in June to explain that at this particular, or at this very place. However, to just recap what's going on, or what actually the ICJ said might be useful. Already we have seen many articles saying that in spite of ICJ decision, Japan has just submitted the new research plan. From our understanding, that's a perception which is not true. This is a paragraph 246 of our ICJ decision itself. And as you can see, it says, the ICJ said, it is to be expected that Japan will take account of the reasoning and conclusions contained in this judgment as it evaluates the possibility of granting any future permits under Article 8, Paragraph 1 of the Convention. The Convention is an international convention for regulation of whaling. So straight reading of this English is when you think about the future research plan, ICJ said, please respect the reasoning and conclusions they come up with in the ICJ judgment. This is not the prohibition of future research activities. About this reasoning and conclusions, that's what we try to respond as much as possible in our new research plan. And if I start talking about these reasoning and conclusions, it will take a few hours. However, in the 5-page document you have just received, the last 2 pages are summary of these reasoning and conclusions and how we responded. And also, there are perceptions that ICJ decision now prohibits a lethal sampling or killing whales for the sake of a science. For this one, also I'd like to show you some paragraph. This is also from ICJ decision paragraph 224. The court, ICJ, finds that the use of a lethal sampling per se is not unreasonable in relation to the research objectives of JARPA-2. JARPA-2 is the Antarctic research activities which by ICJ ordered to be stopped. So again, in plain English, they said if you look at the research objectives of JARPA-2, it's okay to use lethal sampling. So they didn't deny lethal sampling per se. Another one, which is very important from our perspective or from our standpoint, is the Australia and New Zealand, who brought us to the ICJ, made an argument that the IWC has been around now 70 years or so, and the world has changed. And at the beginning, 70 years ago, maybe the purpose of International Whaling Commission was actually management of whaling activities, as its name suggests. However, now conservation or protection of whales is the purpose of this organization. In response, Japan argued that the objective of the convention or objective of IWC stays the same, even though there are many resolutions and changes to the regulations over the last 60, 70 years. You cannot, unless you change the convention, the objective remains. That was Japan's argument. And about this point, this is what ICJ said. The objective of the ICRW, International Convention for Regulation of Whaling, are further indicated in the final paragraph of the preamble, which states that contracting parties decided to conclude a convention to provide for the proper conservation of whale stocks and thus make possible the orderly development of the whaling industry. In a more modern, recent world, the latter half of this objective means a sustainable utilization of whale resources. Amendments to the schedule is a regulation, and recommendations by IWC may put an emphasis on one or the other objective pursued by the convention, but cannot alter its object and purposes. For Japan, this is a very important decision because ICJ now accepts the sustainable utilization of whales is still part of objective of International Whaling Commission. Of course, there are differences of opinion, and that's fine. The problem is, like the moderator has just explained, this particular issue of whales and whaling become so emotional sometimes. And one of the purpose of our research activity is to try to indicate that resumption of sustainable commercial whaling is legally and scientifically justifiable. Of course, the issue of emotions or public opinion remains. However, in the discussion or argument in IWC, oftentimes science, law, emotion, and public perception are mixed or confused. And my belief, at least, is that if we have a common understanding about science and international law, we can look at this issue in a more matured way, rather than coming to IWC every year and repeating the same discussion and fighting each other. To allow whaling issue to remain as an emotional issue will not help international community in many sense. Oftentimes we say that many of our so-called anti-whaling countries are very good ally or friend of Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, and many of the European countries. And diplomatically, we keep saying that we are very good friends. And however, we have a difference of opinion about this particular issue. And this should not affect the bilateral relations. And that's correct. However, when general public become too emotional, that bilateral relations could be affected. Or I don't see any merit that the general public is keeping a very emotional opinion about your usually friendly countries. I felt this strongly, especially when I saw a YouTube video a few years ago that was broadcasted by actually the beer company in Australia. And in that video, the big Asian man came to a restaurant and asking for whale meat. And from behind, he was actually penetrated by a huge harpoon. And that came out from his belly. And if this kind of emotion and feeling is allowed between two nations, even if we keep saying that this should not affect the bilateral relations, I think on general level, this will lead to a very the situation with a lot of concerns. And as the person who have been engaged in government and public sectors, we should do everything to prevent those emotions to prevail over science or international law. The emotions, as you know, could be very dangerous. Sometimes that will affect the government positions or government activities, even if government knows legally and internationally the position of others is legitimate, even though they don't share the same position. By submitting this new research plan, under which we will conduct a lethal sampling, however, we responded faithfully to each point raised by ICJ as long as we can handle. And hopefully this will give a new development to the International Whaling Commission situation in general. I hope personally, again, I think the International Whaling Commission needs a change of a paradigm. Rather than coming to a meeting every year, or now every 2 years, and repeating the same points, and sometimes it becomes very emotional and surrounded by NGOs and media, and only to promote sometimes straight hatred between different nations about this particular issue. There should be other ways to handle whale and whaling. And that's again, hopefully this new research plan will not add more emotions, but to contribute to make the discussion more reasonable. About the contents, if again, the 5-page summary is a very good summary, and I think you can find basic information you like to see from this research activities from this summary. As you have received, the research plan itself is a little bit over 100-page document. And this was built by many scientists, and we have asked cooperation of scientists outside of Japan. And we will keep this as a draft until the last moment of our research plan, which means now the IWC process will be beginning. And in probably February next year, there will be a panel of experts who will review this plan from scientific aspect, and they will produce a report, and that report will be submitted to the main body of a scientific committee of International Whaling Commission in May, which will be held in San Diego, United States. And if they have the substantial or constructive scientific comments, we are happy to include that comment, or we are happy to improve and amend our research plan. The big difference from previous activities are this total transparency. And now the research plan itself is posted in the website of a fisheries agency of Japan. So anyone can look at it, and anyone can give us a comment. So I think I will stop here, and maybe a question and answer might be more interesting rather than just listening to what I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First question, gentleman over there.
Okay, I guess we don't have a microphone, but my name is Tim Horniak from IDG. Oh, should I go up there? Okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Tim Horniak from IDG News. Thank you, Commissioner, for coming to the FCCJ today to talk to us. I've lived in Japan for about 10 years, and I've seen whale meat being sold all over the country. I've tried whale meat in Ginza in a restaurant. I've seen whale meat in my local supermarket. Whale meat being sold in a kiosk at a train station, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a large international perception that scientific research whaling program is just a fig leaf for hunting whales and selling the meat to Japanese. In 2011, Kyodo News reported that there was a stock of 6,000 tons of whale meat in Japan. I'd like to know, what is the current stock, if you know, of whale meat in Japan? And is it true that a lot of the stocks of whale meat in Japan are not being consumed because of declining interest in consuming whale among Japanese? Again, I've lived here for 10 years. I have found maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people, Japanese people, in all my experiences who have actually said, I like whale meat. Most of them say, well, I just eat whale meat back when I was in kindergarten or something, because we didn't have any protein back then. But what is the situation with the whale stocks, the stocks of whale meat, rather, and is it being consumed? And what is your response, or what is the official response to the international perception that the scientific research whaling program is a mere fig leaf for hunting and distributing whale meat? Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I'm very glad you asked this particular question. Starting from the stock of meat, it's now gone. And probably for those who like the whale meat, will have a difficult time to find the whale meat for the coming year. And for the reason, I can only speculate. Of course, we will stop the research activities in Antarctic for this year. That will probably is a one aspect of a reduced stock. But even before that, as of the beginning of this year, we ran out of stocks of whale meat. Maybe thanks to Sea Shepherd, I don't know. Sometimes visibility prompt people to try the whale meat in Japan. Generally speaking, the total size of whale meat market currently in Japan is like 5,000 metric tons per year. And yes, it's true. There was a stockpile of around 5,000 or 6,000 a few years ago, but now it's gone. And you can speak to like dealers in Tsukiji or anything. They all know that stockpile is now gone. So again, for the reasons I only speculate. So the situation has changed. And also, sometimes it is reported or written that there are reduced demand for whale meat. Therefore, it's not worthy for Japanese government to continue to pursue the resumption of whaling. I have to point out that maybe there is a reduced demand. But the first it was a reduced supply because of a moratorium, because of the restriction. And once the supply is, or reduced supply continues, the people start, or people will lose the opportunity to eat. And that might be leading to a reduced demand eventually. However, I just wanted to point out that the reduced demand didn't come first. The reduced supply came first because of a moratorium. Also, we have many opportunities to especially go local communities. And our experience is that once the price is reduced, there are very strong demand in local towns or local cities. And the price elasticity might be very high, at least presently. However, as I said, the total supply is only 5,000 metric tons per now. And at peak time, it was late 60s, was like 220 or 230,000 metric tons. So the current supply or the amount which is marketed is only a very small part of a previous. And that's why probably price elasticity is still high. There is potential population who like to eat whale meat once the price is lower than now, especially in local communities. But again, personally, the reason I have been engaged in the whaling issue so long is simply I think it's wrong for any countries or any nations to impose their way of looking at a particular animal on others. When legally and scientifically it is possible or justifiable to catch a particular animal, we cannot solve the difference of perception or difference of view or difference of values we put on particular animal. But there should be the agreement to disagree rather than trying to force your way of thinking to other countries. For many Japanese, again, in general, the perception is we are attacked in terms of whaling issue. We are attacked from anti-whaling countries. I know that that perception is different from outside. Outside of Japan, Japan's whaling activities is probably regarded attack on the environment or attack on whales or marine living resources. But for many Japanese, whaling issue is a symbol that Japan is attacked by Western countries. I keep saying the same thing, but many of you might have an experience of asking a usual Japanese in Ginza or Shimbashi about their opinion about whale and whaling issue. Many of them says, well, I haven't been eating whale meat for a long time, and I don't particularly like to eat whale meat, but I cannot accept beef-eating people or pork-eating people to say you don't eat whale meat. That's a simple feeling, but that's indicate the perception that many Japanese think this is an attack from outside. I'm not saying this is good, but that needs to be understood when we are to try to make this issue a little bit easier for all nations involved. About going back to your first question about the scientific whaling is commercial whaling in disguise. The official response is no, simply. And if we try to make a scientific whaling as commercially viable, the operation will be very different. And research vessels, well, in a commercial operation, the form they operate is they just go to the highest density distribution. That sounds scientific. They will go ocean where the many whales are distributed, and take only a large one, because that is most economically efficient way of catching any animal, like fish. However, in the scientific whaling activities, there we call cruise track. How they actually cruise in the research area is predetermined. So they have to go to the area where the whales are not distribute as dense as other areas, because they have to look at or they have to collect the data even from low density area. And also when they catch animals, they don't target the largest ones. And they have to be engaged in a random sampling. And sometimes they use a scientific formula, and so that they can catch the animal in a random manner. Well, simple example is if you go to a Ryogoku and just look at the small wrestlers and regard them as a sort of a typical Tokyo resident, you'll be very wrong. And in order to have the sort of average picture of a total Tokyo residents, you have to go to kindergarten, you have to go to a school, you have to go to a Ginza crossroad and everywhere. That's a random sampling. And that's what our research activities are involved. And also the meat is sold to the market, yes. Also, this is a part of the convention's obligation. It only says don't waste the meat after your research activities, essentially. When that is sold from Institute of Cetacean Research, the organization who is conducting the research activities, the price is set in consultation with the government so that they will not make any money. The price is set so that they can only cover next year's research activities, actually short of it. And that's why the difference is supported by the government, at least in the past. So as long as the Institute of Cetacean Research is concerned, it's not a money-making operation. Of course, I cannot deny that those retailers and wholesalemen in the Tsukiji and other people are making some money out of a distribution of a whale meat. But main purpose of a research activity is not making money. Probably I will allow you for the next question.
You just said, you mentioned in the 1960s was a peak with 200,000 metric tons, and now it's 5,000.
Yes.
And you said that the shrinking demand might be some result of the shrinking supply. So, which was first, we never know. What is your answer to some concern that the scientific whaling might be the step to open the door for going back to commercial whaling and going back to the good old times with the 200,000 metric tons? This is what I sometimes hear from people who criticize this Japanese whaling. What is your answer? Is this a real danger, or will you say this could not happen?
Yeah. First of all, we will abide by the old IWC rules in resuming commercial whaling if when it comes out. And under that rule, there will be no repetition of a bad old days or uncontrolled whaling. And secondly, the perception is, again, the resumption of a whaling is prohibited or wrong. But whaling activity itself is now regarded as something bad or even evil. This language you are seeing is the Schedule 10, Paragraph 10E of International Convention of Regulation of Whaling. And this is a language which adopted so-called commercial whaling moratorium in 1982. And the first sentence says, notwithstanding the other provisions of Paragraph 10, catch limits, those red words are my emphasis, catch limits for the killing for commercial purpose of whales from all stocks, blah, 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 shall be zero. So it says catch limits are zero. Doesn't say we will prohibit the whaling permanently, or we will label whaling activity something bad. This is a simple regulation of hunting activities. Happen to be zero catch quota for the period prescribed in this language. And that will become sort of clearer if you see the second sentence. Second sentence says, this provision will be kept under review based upon the best scientific advice, and by 1990, at the latest, the Commission, IWC, will undertake a comprehensive assessment of the effects of this decision on whale stocks and consider modification of this provision and the establishment of other catch limit other than zero. So again, in a simple English, this says, we will keep this zero catch limit until 1990 at the latest. During that time, let's collect some more scientific data and conduct comprehensive assessment. And as a result, we like to consider establishment of a non-zero catch quota. So what we are asking for is perfectly in line with this provision. So IWC is not prohibiting whaling. And the scientific committee has been engaged in its exercise of calculating catch quota. However, the Commission did not accept the request. That's what's happening. So Also, in order to support my reading of this particular paragraph, sorry. Sometimes it's sleeping. Yes. This is a statement by a country supporting moratorium at IWC meeting in 1981, 1 year before the actual adoption. This person says, we recognize that other countries, this is whaling countries, have a legitimate commercial interest in whaling, and if in the future it could be shown beyond a reasonable doubt that some exploitation of stock might be safely resumed and that satisfactory method of killing were available, this is an animal welfare aspect, the lifting of ban might be considered. What we had in mind is a moratorium and not a permanent ban. Very clear. Come on, next year, some other countries supporting a moratorium said, I would repeat and remind you that this is a catch limit proposal, not a ban or a moratorium. First of all, let me advance that I don't consider this as a total ban, but just a temporary interruption of the activity. It is with deep regret that I note that there have been a misunderstanding on the proposal of distinguished delegates from the Seychelles. The Seychelles proposed a moratorium. It is not a proposal for a total ban of commercial whaling, but rather a proposal on catch limits. So, at least 30 years ago, this was a statement supporting so-called commercial whaling moratorium. Time might have changed, 30 years has passed, but the language which established the commercial whaling moratorium stayed the same. And that's the language we based our activities and we based our positions about whales and whaling. So again, scientifically, legally, resumption of sustainable whaling is justified. And as long as we follow the scientific committee formula for catch quota, there will be not a return of bad old days. And we have already accepted a very extensive enforcement measures, like placing non-Japanese observers on board our vessels, and placing satellite monitoring, vessel monitoring system on the whaling vessels, so that on the real time you can monitor where those vessels are actually operating. So now the only difference is now there is a perception that killing whale is wrong in anti-whaling countries. It's not, from our point of view, it's not a scientific issue, it's not a legal issue. It's an issue of a difference of a perception, difference of a value of this particular animal. Thank you.
Thomas Dahl, journalist from Switzerland. I do have a question about your research program. Now we are talking about the research program where you have to kill the animals. But actually, how much money did Japan spend in the last year for a research program where the whales are still alive? And do you have any plans to extend this kind of research? Because it's also scientific research.
Thank you very much again for that question. Our research plan includes very extensive non-lethal components. And maybe contrary to your perception, in our past or existing scientific research plan, we have very extensive non-lethal portion too. But in this new plan, we will extend a non-lethal components in response to ICJ reasoning and conclusion. The continuation of a non-lethal part is, for example, the sighting survey, the counting survey. Japan has been very extensively involved in the counting survey in Antarctic and around Japanese waters, and that will be continued. And there are some scientific issues the scientist has some disputes whether lethal method is required or non-lethal method is sufficient to get data. One example is the estimation of age of whales. Obviously, in any management of stocks or populations, age information is vital. If you compare this with the human population dynamics, it should be clear. If the total Tokyo population is all over the year of 65, you don't see many people remaining 30 years from now. However, if we have a large population of younger ages in their 20s and 30s, hopefully we will prevail or our population will remain the same. So look at the age is very important. And you cannot just ask whales or any other animals, how old are you, and you get the correct answer. And in case of whales, the established technique to estimate age is to look at the accumulated wax in the inner ear of the animal. So you have to take out that wax because that will form the ring annually. So by counting the ring, you can get the age. However, some scientists says we can use a DNA in order to estimate the age. DNA can be obtained by a technique called biopsy. Just take a small portion of animal's skin, and you don't need to kill the animal to get that one. As long as we know, the DNA could indicate whether you are young or old, or you are either in the middle age or not. But you cannot distinguish the age difference between 32 years old and 33 years old. But rather than just saying this, we have decided to conduct actual comparative study to show with the data that what we are saying is at the current state of science. Of course, we will not deny that sometime in the future there might be better ways. And if that's the case, in accordance with IC's decision, we will look at modifying the sample size of our research activities. So the list of a lot of non-lethal studies are in the, I think, section 4 of our research plan, which is starting from page 32. So you can see an extensive non-lethal study will be engaged. And how much does it cost? I have no idea. Actually, we will start the budgeting process now because we have just submitted the research plan to the IWC. So, sorry, I don't have an answer for that one. Thank you.
First, the gentleman in the middle, and then you are the next one. So, no, after. So, he was first.
Michael Chuchek at Temple University, Japan Institute of Contemporary Asian Studies. Just looking at the science question of this, I have some questions regarding the scientific sampling method. In the explanation on that you gave out today, there is on page 5 this statement in the first paragraph that it can be hypothesized that the phenomenon was caused by increased pressures on Antarctic minke whales from the recovering populations of humpback and fin whales being overexploited in the 1960s. My understanding of that sentence is that minke are now under pressure because of recovering stocks of fin and humpback. In order to measure what the sustainable yield, you're going to then hunt minke, which seems to me a contradiction in terms. If they are the ones under pressure, increasing the pressure on them will distinctly damage the scientific value of what you are trying to determine. So if you are yourself involving yourself in the pressure, are you not affecting the outcome in a way that makes the eventual scientific discovery a bit suspicious. The second question I have is just regarding the RMP as a whole. The RMP, it doesn't seem to be a scientific number. The RMP seems to be a backwards looking, we have a whale hunt, and we have to determine from these whales some kind of intellectually useful item. Is there some necessity in order to determine RMP that requires killing the animals? Thank you.
Okay. For the first question of a possible shift in the Antarctic ecosystem, I will show you this graph. The top portion is the mainly red or pinkish color. And this red and pinkish color is a distribution of minke whales. And in the late 90s. And the second one in the middle, I hope you can see intrusion of blue-grayish color. That's the distribution of a humpback. And this is around 5 years after the top, the picture. And the bottom one is the most recent. And now you can see humpback, the blue-grayish part is dominant. And minkies are now constrained around that purplish line is ice age. So very close to the ice age of Antarctic continent. Also, IWC and Japan has been engaged in the sighting survey of humpback, fin, and the minkies in this area for the last 30 years. And engaged in a stock assessment, try to estimate the number. Even though the distribution of minke, as you can see, is shrinking, the total number of estimation is statistically stable, interestingly. So it looks like all the minkies are now confined in a smaller place, but we are not seeing the number of a decrease yet, maybe. And the one of the reasons that we only catch minkies is, and before that, in that first paragraph, we are saying that this shift might be a result of a recovering humpback and fin whale and their pressure on minkies in terms of distribution, space, and food, or it might be caused by some change in the distribution of a krill, animal plankton, which form the basis of Antarctic ecosystem. This might be caused by climate change in general, which affected the distribution and migration of animals. And we don't know. And some of the possible indicators or that might indicate something is what we are looking at is the biologies of minke whales. We have already found that their blubber thickness, so fat, has been decreasing recently. And also, we have been seeing that the change of their age at maturity, or age at maturity become younger in the old days. However, it became stable these days. Sounds very scientific, but the first blubber thickness thing might indicate availability of food. Simply, if you are not having enough food, you might be getting leaner, so you have less fat, which might be caused as a result of a competition with other whales, which might be caused as a result of a reduced krill stock in general, and that's one of the purposes we like to conduct the research activities here. And also, age at maturity is essentially indicate that at what age you can be reproductive. And when the nutritional condition is better, the old animals, including human beings, become reproductive at the younger age. And that happened to minkies in the 70s and 80s. However, since then, it stopped or stabilized. So again, this might give scientists some clues to interpret this shift and might point some direction about the cause. And your point of why you just catch the animal which is under pressure is the one of the reasons is, as I explained, we have a very good accumulation of existing data for these minke whales. And if the minke number has been decreasing, we probably thought twice before we sample minkies. Even though their distribution has been, in terms of area, shrunk, we are seeing a stable population. So that's why we continue to sample minkies. And in the ideal world, like in our previous research activities, we also like to look at the similar biological data from other whales, like humpback and fin, which was included in the previous research plan. But ICJ, one of the ICJ's point is that we didn't have enough scientific explanation to justify the number of samples for fin and humpback. And at this particular research activities, we couldn't make enough improvement in that particular aspect. So we end up sampling just minkies. But that does not mean we will not look at humpback and the fin. And we will conduct a sighting survey. We will conduct the other possible non-lethal studies on other species of whales. And we try to use the proxies we can get from minkies to build a model of including all those animals. And eventually, we can sort of identify the field of the more data needs. And even throughout the course of our research activities, which is now 12 years, we might like to amend or improve our research plan to take into account of that possible change. As to RMP, this is also very technical, but RMP was first built by the scientific committee in 1992 and adopted by consensus by IWC in 1994. And the initial assumption is this is a minimal data required system for catch quota. And in ideal situation, the RMP requires only past catch history and also the latest estimate of numbers of animals which can be obtained by counting, non-lethal method. However, the IWC Scientific Committee is now engaged in a very extensive discussion before actually they triggered RMP with those only two data. Because in building the RMP or in building actual formula, they need such information like the stock structure of minke whale if you are to apply minkies. Stock structure, stock is again the scientific terminology. Stock is the group of animals with different reproductive, feeding, migratory habits from other group of animal, but within the same species. So human beings is the one species, Homo sapiens. However, obviously, the Japanese and Americans has a different food habit or food taste, maybe. And as to the reproductive strategy, I don't know the difference. Maybe there is. As to the distribution, in the old days when the transportation was not as good as it is now, we do have a different distribution or habitat. And the minkies or any other animals have a similar different groups within the species. And in order to distinguish those groups, the scientific committee agreed that DNA data and the morphological data and the biological data is needed. DNA, again, can be obtained by non-lethal method, but morphological data is simply says it's a face or shape of the animal. In general, Americans, sorry to keep citing Americans. Americans are much bigger than Japanese. And that's might be a biological difference. At least statistically, we are different. And whale is the same. And in some places, our scientists says they have a different face, even if the same species. And Japanese claim that we can tell the difference between people in Okinawa and people in Hokkaido. Similar things might be happening. And also, their food habit might be different. In other species, like killer whale, orca, some of the killer whale group eat only fish. Others eat pinnipeds, seals, and those legged marine mammals. And if you look at their stomach contents, you can tell the difference. The scientists even look at the parasites, because depending on the place you are living, you carry different parasites. And all those information, some of those informations are only obtained by catching animals. And that supports DNA analysis. That's another reason we think lethal sampling is necessary for minkies, at least at current level of science. I can give you some more example to justify catching animals, but it's maybe time is limited, so this is only an example. Thank you. I hope I answer your questions.
So as our time nearly is over, maybe the last question from this gentleman over there.
Yes, please.
John Boyd, freelance. I'd like to clarify a point first, please. When I spoke with the Greenpeace person, he said that in 2007, the IWC recognized non-lethal use of scientific research. You mentioned about DNA sampling. Is that what this is referring to? Or is this 2007 recognition of non-lethal means of scientific research something else? That's the clarification. Okay. My question is, you talked about the need for a new paradigm at the IWC, rather than going back every 2 years and having the same old arguments. What realistically could be a new paradigm, given that there is so much emotion and given that there is so much anti-whaling feeling? You've made out an argument for the legal and the scientific merits of what you're doing, but it doesn't seem to carry that much weight. So realistically, what can you hope to do? And when could we possibly see a new paradigm? Thank you.
Thank you. The first question about clarification. The IWC actually have adopted more than a dozen resolutions, legally non-binding, that promotes a non-lethal study. So I don't remember a particular 2007 stuff. However, I don't think that whatever the 2007 resolution or language says, its significance is not different from other resolutions or other part of a scientific reports. Maybe that person happened to know this particular one. And as to the new paradigm, I always try to be hopeful about this issue. And at the last meeting of IWC in Slovenia in September, actually gave me some hope. And we did have a difficult issue as usual. However, definitely there are more dialogue. And in the bad old days in IWC meetings, anti-whaling countries and the pro or sustainable use countries even didn't talk to each other. I know the situation where they had the separate reception. And sometimes when they meet at the corridor, both of them look the other way. But now we smile each other, and sometimes we eat each other and talk to a possible consensus. And one particular example of a so-called New Zealand resolution at the Slovenia, it was reported here in Japan that is a sort of an additional blow to Japan's exercise of a new research plan, because the resolution aims for set up another obstacle for the conduct of a research. However, we had a very productive meeting, tried to come up with a consensus about that research. And the proponent, New Zealand, was willing to talk, and Japan was also engaged in the discussion, very constructive manner. I'm not just saying or boasting myself. That was a word by New Zealand at the stage, at the last day of IWC. So we praised each other, not just diplomatic good word. We felt really we did a very good job. However, the atmosphere needs to be further promoted and nurtured so that we really build a new paradigm in the coming meeting. Unless IWC has already decided to meet biannually, one of the incentive to meet biannually is many people saw no point meeting every year. And they fed up with the usual fighting. And some people might even jokingly saying, how about we meet every 5 years? And we might end up saying that, well, maybe we meet only when it is necessary. That's the death of our organization. And Japan thinks we need international organization, which both conserve and manage whale and whaling. And our basic position is all those international activities have to be agreed and engaged by under the international organization. And the IWC is that organization. But if it fails, we have to think about something new. However, this new paradigm should be coming, and there are more than one commissioners in IWC who like to see the same. There are many possible prototype where even a more emotional issue can come to some kind of a equilibrium or acceptance. In IWC, somehow we couldn't agree to disagree. And again, Japan felt that we are imposed on a non-whaling policy from outside. But there are many organizations where issues are more emotional, even religious. However, just decide to accept what the others are different from us. Again, as long as it's sustainable, the utilization is sustainable, and as long as it meets international law. If sort of smart enough people gather from all around the world, I think they can come up with some formula in which they can agree to disagree, not antagonizing each other every year, not making their nations sometimes hate each other, like we saw at the video of a beer making company in Australia. And that's a responsibility of a government, I think. And that's a responsibility of media, maybe. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I think that was quite interesting for all of us. So thank you for giving us explanation. And I got some impression about negotiation at the Whaling Commission since I listened to the commissioner. I think in the interest of the Japanese position, you do a very good job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
We have the club's tradition to give a 1-year honorary membership. I don't think we have Australian beer, so should be mostly Japanese. And we have a wonderful sushi bar you can use as well. It's no whale meat there, but I hope you find the time and will enjoy this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.